past a shopping center on the right-hand side. That's where the Trader Joe's is, if that's a landmark that people may know. Crossing the road, going onto the opposite side of traffic now.
Oh boy, this is
trying to get out of the way. This is a problem.
So this is what we saw earlier. They were just sort of letting this driver have it, go at it. But this is where they're probably, look at this
Whoa,
here.
hit another car.
Yeah, they're going to have to bring this to a stop a lot sooner as you look at this driver get more
hitting
aggressive.
Another car, 3 more cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, doing another maneuver to go back onto 29. Oh, it looks like he stopped at this
so
tree.
I don't know if he's stuck or stopped. Nope, he's trying to back out of there. Again, so this all started with a report of a stolen truck, right, Adam? This is how so we have officers approaching right now.
They appear to be opening the door. Are they pulling him out of the car?
Looks like they're going to try to pull him out of the car. We
Guns
saw it
drawn.
moving just a bit. Those guns are drawn. I'm not sure if we're going to cut away.
It looks like they're trying to break the back window.
They're trying to get in somehow because, as you saw a minute ago, this is truly a threat right here when you have a driver just maneuvering the streets like this with a lot of traffic out on the roads in such a busy part of town as well. Again, you have the K9 dogs on scene as well. A lot of those officers from Maryland State Police. You had Prince George's County Police a little earlier on the scene. A number of jurisdictions working to bring this driver to a stop. They're trying to break through the glass to get in.
I can't tell that there's any movement in the car right now. I mean, I'm up on the screen right now, ads. I don't know if you can see it too.
I can't see it any better.
They're hitting the window to try to get inside.
But as far as motion behind the driver's wheel, I can't see any. And you know what has to be scary for officers at this point, because we don't know if this suspect was armed. We don't know how he or she took control of this vehicle.
And also how if this vehicle is going to stay in place.
Did he shift it into a different gear?
Right.
Is he even still moving?
So
there he is, going in.
We're pulling him out.
We're watching this together. This is roadside assistance truck was reported stolen. It's off 29 right now on the side of the road. Police are responding.
And it looks like they have the person, the driver. And this all began, shortly before 5 o'clock, Adam, when we were watching this unfold?
Yeah, that's right. About 5:15,
now,
5:20.
Okay.
That's when we first got word that there was a lookout for this vehicle.
And we saw him crashing into some of those other cars before. You're just hoping those folks are okay as well. So you have medics, I'm sure, responding to those scenes to make sure those people are okay.
Boy, we saw some of those cars spin 180 degrees as this truck just plowed right into them. You have to feel for all those folks just trying to get from point A to B on a Friday night ahead of this snowstorm that we're expecting. And now all of a sudden they've got crumpled cars and possible injuries.
Absolutely.
So we're hearing this is right near the Northwest Branch Recreation Center. Trying to pull that up. Yeah, so it's not far. You mentioned the Trader Joe's in that area, Les. So we are...
So it would appear too that they're just dealing with. I was just going to say it does appear that we're looking at the officers dealing with just one person. We couldn't get a good shot at any point to see how many people were in this vehicle, despite the fact that the officers went in from both sides. It looks like they are dealing with whoever was driving this vehicle there on the driver's side on the ground. They had the canines come in. The canines were called back. It appears that they have this person in custody.
Yeah, so this is just off of Route 29 and Lockwood Drive.
Which is not too far from the downtown Silver Spring area. If you are just tuning in, we have been watching what was once a police pursuit involving an emergency response vehicle from DDOT, that yellow truck that normally dispatches to help people who need help on the road, became a menace on the road, being tracked by several jurisdictions, trying to get him to stop, and ended right here off of 29, where police have been able to pull the suspect out of that vehicle, get him on the ground, and they're in the process of assessing what damage he left in his wake. Damage from Calverton to here, hitting cars left and right, people who had no idea what was happening or were trying to get out of the way. And we saw this sort of amp up in intensity. It started out where he was just kind of moving, and then he got more aggressive, the driver.
And that's when you notice police sort of step back just a bit, just to sort of recalibrate, figure out their approach. When they noticed this driver was getting more aggressive, he started to approach some of the busier areas in our town, and that's when they moved in. They figured they had to stop him right away because you had so many lives in danger at that point.
Hey, Ads, by our count, what are we saying? At least a dozen cars got kind of caught up in this?
At least a dozen until this last hurrah by the suspect in pulling through that gas station and then banged into a couple of more. So I would say somewhere closer to 20 vehicles have to be impacted by this, including the law enforcement vehicles. And that was the first vehicle that we saw the suspect plow into, trying to escape here about 10 minutes ago.
Wow.
And the question now is, again, who this person is, why this truck was stolen to begin with, what the plans were for that. We talk about carjackings and vehicles being stolen in our area quite often, and it's not often that you have a state truck being stolen.
Right, and it's not often that we see a carjacking with a pursuit with multiple jurisdictions occurring too. Adam, you mentioned that obviously this is a Friday night, it's rush hour, it's people trying to get ahead of the storm that's happening. Any number of things are happening now, and so people certainly did not anticipate, here we go again. That was one of those moments. Boom, 3-4 cars there as the driver was quite aggressive in the pursuit before he was tracked down.
And causing a head-on accident with that move here.
Yeah.
And when we started to follow this, before we actually brought it onto the air, where this vehicle was traveling, there wasn't a lot of traffic. So only in this area where we saw the vehicle finally come to a stop and make these evasive maneuvers, that's been around this heavy traffic scene. And then of course, going back 5 minutes ago when he got onto the opposite side of the road and was trying to get away from officers that way by going the wrong way down the road, just creating an extremely dangerous situation for everyone out there.
Yeah, and like you were saying before too, clearly this person knows the area, knows the roads, because they were able to get away from police, for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the only good news out of this is it appears to be over. Ads, this started what? What time would you say? How long did this go on?
We've been following this for a good 40 to 50 minutes at this point. But again, just within the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes is when the officers actually got involved as far as this pursuit went. So the unconfirmed information that we have is that this vehicle was stolen. This isn't, by all accounts, an MDOT employee who was driving this vehicle and then all of a sudden became engaged by the authorities. We're hearing that this was the suspect somehow got control of this vehicle and took off. We haven't heard anything to this point about that suspect possibly being armed or how he or she may have taken control of this vehicle. But this is something that just sort of ramped up slowly in intensity, and as more officers came in and got involved in this pursuit, and as this suspect apparently got more desperate to escape, that's where we saw all of these other vehicles start to be impacted.
Yeah, and for police to give chase, they had to recognize some sort of threat very early on. And clearly they were spot on because of what we're seeing play out on our screen right now.
And this was just such an intense moment here, and it makes me wonder, twice we saw, that vehicle go into a cul-de-sac, and then the second time the vehicle stopped. Remember, we were camped out on that vehicle for a good 5 minutes, and then on this narrow road was able to come back out, get by the officers, and go up the street, cause even more carnage, damage, and mayhem before ultimately coming to a stop here. So I think some questions will be asked in the aftermath as to how this played out.
I guess it's amazing that there weren't more people hurt given what we've seen here. We haven't seen anyone who was on foot who was hit by this vehicle or on a bike, which would have been even more destructive than the path of destruction that was already left in its wake. It is Friday evening, 6:32, and we are wrapping up our newscast, not in the way that we intended to, certainly not anticipating an emergency patrol vehicle to be on the road with police pursuing, leaving a ton of damage in its wake. We have no idea about the conditions of the people who were hit along this 40-minute plus pursuit, but you're seeing right there some of the incredible damage that happened as that person behind the wheel took police on quite a ride this evening.
And even though this looks horrible, thankfully it wasn't much worse considering what we're dealing with here. We know a lot of folks, we saw that live image there a moment ago, they were sort of looking at where this truck stopped, collecting as much evidence as possible to figure out, again, the why this truck was stolen and what this person's intentions were.
And here's that moment where it's going down the wrong way of the street. You have to think too, I mean, perhaps that vehicle having its lights on gave some people at least a little bit of a heads up that something was coming. But I mean, for some of these folks coming down the road, just not expecting
All right.
Not at all.
There are a lot of questions to answer. We're going to be staying on top of this breaking news all night, again, to figure out, what transpired here. Look for updates right here on TV and on our WUSA 9 app.
And you can also stream us for free on WUSA 9 Plus. That is it for us on the news at 6. Be careful out there. We'll have a full update for you coming up tonight at 11.